So, once again, a warm welcome in Faith Pavilion. We are starting our 4 p.m. session. We're slightly running over time. Sorry for that. Thanks for coming here to join the session Moving Faith Forward, Youth Leadership and Faith-Based Climate Advocacy. The live stream is running, so we have participants joining virtually. And thanks for everyone who's in the room. And I'm handing over to my colleague Miriam, who's with UNEP Faith for Earth. You are the moderator of this session. You have convened a wonderful panel, and we are thankful for everyone who has joined us here on stage. Miriam, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Matthias. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm really excited for this discussion. Moving Faith Forward, Youth Leadership and Faith-Based Climate Advocacy. We're going to be talking about faith engagement in negotiations, in faith-based organizations, and the role of youth in pushing that forward. I'm really excited to be joined by a really incredible group. And just so everyone has a sense of the flow, we're going to have a bit of a discussion, and then we'll transition into more of an interactive workshop in the second half of the session. So just be prepared. You'll have a chance to sort of get up and discuss with the audience and with the panelists. So as Matthias said, I'm Miriam. I'm an intern with the UNEP Faith for Earth initiative. I was told to say that all views are my own. I'm not representing them right now. But just to quickly introduce our panelists, to my left, I have Lucy Plumer from Soka Gakkai International. She's the National Youth Leader for the UK and Youth Consultant at SGI's UN office. And then we have Silvana Peralta, who's the Technical Specialist for the Adaptation Department at the National Directorate of Climate Change of the Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development of Paraguay. Thank you for being here. And then further down, we have Precious Haino, who's a delegate for COP28 with FIMCAP, which is a network of Catholic community-based youth organizations. Precious is from Cebu City in the Philippines. And then all the way at the end, can barely see him. We have Tahir Bulbulia, who is a youth ambassador from the beautiful island of Barbados. He has worked in various areas, including sports, transformation, and youth development, and currently serves as the youth ambassador to the UN and consultant to the government of Barbados. So welcome, all of you. Just maybe a round of applause for everyone. So I want to start off just talking about, by way of introduction, thinking for maybe people who haven't made the connection before, in the context of climate change and the work that you all do, could you explain maybe a little bit about the way that your personal faith or the faith of your community or the places that you come from has informed the work that you do and maybe the motivation that you have? And maybe we'll just go down the line. So I'll start with Lucy.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. So yeah, I'm from the Soka Gakkai International. We are a international grassroots network of practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism. And yeah, just to really briefly mention how kind of faith inspires the work that I do is it really helps me to understand that transformation of the heart is possible. And I experience it myself every day through my Buddhist practice, which enables me to connect with my own humanity and is the tool that I use to develop my humanity. So it really kind of gives me confidence that change is possible and, you know, the transformation of the human heart is absolutely possible. And I think that's what we've come to know is really one of the key things to move, to get towards climate justice and to move climate action along. So yes, I'll leave it there. Does this stretch? Oh,
Hello, happy to be here. I'm Silvana. I'm Christian Catholic. When I was a child, what inspired me to take the role that I have now was when I discovered the story of a saint named San Francisco de Asís in Spanish, and Francesco de Asís, and he believed that all creatures are our brothers and sisters, and he wanted to take care of our common house. So that was inspired me, and I am very happy to now be able to work to protect our environment. And so that's what inspired me and how my faith is involved in the work that I do. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm from the Philippines, which is very widely known as a Christian country. So ever since I was brought up in a very religious family, and it has taught me of the Christian teachings, especially of the Roman Catholics. So I have come to know that, yes, as humans, we are created in the image of and likeness of God, but it isn't about our superiority other than God's creations, but it is about our responsibility. So to love God, it also means that we have to respect His creations. So my faith ultimately taught me to respect His creations, and thus by caring for the environment. So I am grateful to have this opportunity to impact and contribute in shaping the climate change landscape through the largest platform there is. So thank you, and I hope that you'll be able to learn something from me.
Hello, hi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming out to this very important event. But firstly, let me commend the organizers of this event because it's very important in this time. So I want you all to give them a big round of applause, please, just to commend them for their vision of having this event. Secondly, this panel is also testament to how faith and religions are supposed to work. Varying religions, varying backgrounds, varying perspectives coming together on one panel to discuss for the greater good, to bring people together. And that's what religions is about. And testament, we're in the house of the Faith Pavilion, and just as people here come in and view the different religions, the different backgrounds on every aspect and come together, this is how we are supposed to be living our life in every aspect. I think religion, in this time especially, has become a very trivial political issue, and it is being used to divide people. But religion, and the focus and the main aim of religion, is to bring together people. And just as we are here today to coming together for this panel and for this discussion, this is testament and an example of how we can live our life moving forward. For me, faith is all of my life. I base my life on faith, on my religion, and just being a good human being. At the end of the day, the good thing about faith is that no matter how many times you fall, you can have faith that you will stand up the next day.
Thank you so much, all of you. And to hear, I think that's a nice transition because we're here at the Faith Pavilion, which is a collaboration, of so many different faith-based organizations all coming together, like you said, to kind of create this platform. And in the process of planning this panel, we were talking a lot about what does it mean for youth to have this type of platform, especially people who are motivated by their faith and doing advocacy and negotiation work. And so I want to talk a little bit about that relationship between youth, young people of faith, and sort of the institutions that we engage with in this context, faith-based organizations, as well as the negotiation process, the UN institutions. And so we're lucky to have two of you from sort of an advocacy perspective and two of you from more of a negotiations diplomacy perspective. So I'd love to hear, starting maybe with the advocacy side of things, how you think that relationship could be better structured, could be strengthened, and how can we really make sure that the perspectives of young people are being considered in the work of faith-based organizations, in the work, in their advocacy, and kind of going forward.
Thank you so much. Yeah, such a really good question, and I feel really fortunate actually that I'm around youth a lot. In my professional career, I'm a youth engagement coordinator, and in my faith community, I'm a faith leader. So I really get to interact with a lot of youth, and youth possess a very pure-hearted desire to make a difference, I would say. And they're always seeking ways to do that. They're seeking meaningful pathways to be able to make a difference. And something that I wanted to talk about in response to this is an example from the Soka Gakkai International, actually. And as I mentioned, we're a grassroots network of practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism. And what I wanted to speak about was a group that we have within the membership, which is a group for students. So it's a group for young people that are studying at university, And it was actually established in 1957, so a long time back, by our second founding president, Jose Toda, who really recognized students as the future leaders of society. And he had a desire to kind of, in recognizing that these students would one day shoulder the responsibility of the future, wanted to really give them an opportunity, wanted to expose them more deeply to the humanistic philosophy of Buddhism. So this student group was established for student members to deeply study Buddhist philosophy alongside their own studies, whether it's economics, policy, law, science, education, whatever their interest is to really study Buddhism deeply, which is a humanistic philosophy respecting the dignity of life and at its foundation. So the idea was to give these students an opportunity to really kind of deeply study both. So that when they step into these positions in society, they would be grounded in humanism and compassion. So that was the idea. And then sometime after that, our third president, Daisaku Ikeda, brought Jose Toda's vision along further and established a group within the student division called the Vanguard Leaders. And this was a group specifically to train and to develop leadership capabilities of the students. And what I wanted to highlight is the origins of the term vanguard, because it has its roots in kind of military terminology, and the vanguard was the kind of, those at the forefront of an advancing army. And I was reflecting on this recently, actually, that I hadn't made the connection before, and especially listening to different youth here from conflict areas. It's a sad reality that throughout history, youth are the first to be sacrificed in war and conflict. And so, the fact that in the SGI, these youth vanguard leaders are the ones on the front lines of the SGI's movement for peace it's really significant, because not only are they kind of, they're really transforming their destiny through, transforming their misfortune into fortune by taking that kind of concept of being at the vanguard of an army to being at the vanguard for peace. So I find that really significant, actually. And yeah, I've been in the student division or the student group for about 10 years, starting as an undergraduate, and really receiving this brilliant training from my leaders at the time. And when I was doing my master's, it was again an opportunity to study sustainable development from a very humanistic perspective. So now, as a kind of, working for the SGI UN office, working on youth affairs, I can really take that humanistic lens to connect with, human rights, climate justice, youth inclusion, into those spaces. And I think I will leave it there. But just the key message is that I think that faith-based organizations should really put active effort into developing and fostering that real pure-hearted passion and potential of their youth, because then, as we know, we unleash youth and they will do incredible things, but it really can start within the organization itself.
Absolutely, thank you. I really like that idea of the vanguard and kind of reframing what youth are capable of and maybe how they're being utilized almost. So I would love to go, Precious, to you to hear about your work a little bit more with FIMCAP and kind of in the advocacy role that you're in at home and here at COP, how you would respond to that question.
Yeah, so I am from Quiro, Pilipinas. So it is a parish-based organization in the Philippines, which is a member organization of FIMCAP, and we focus on the children and youth to teach them of the Roman Catholic teachings. So what we usually did to integrate the youth in our advocacies is to harness their idealness, their passion to create change, to be at the forefront of change. So we need not to kill that passion. We need to harness them so that in the future they can be those on the lead, at the forefront of change, especially on environmental care and protection. So there are just 3 things that we did in the organization. So first, we must have an inclusive space for the young, for the youth, and also we need to have a community immersion. And last is we need to have mentorship opportunities, of course. So first, for the inclusive spaces, we need to teach them about the ways we do, especially in advocating for the good. And for inclusive spaces, we need not to have divisions. We need to acknowledge everyone of different races, of different standings, of the different walks of life. And also, we need to accept their ideals, their knowledge, their vision. And that is how we can improve the children and the youth to come forward for everyone. And next is the community immersion. Of course, we need the young people to be attuned to reality, because being attuned to reality, that could help them to widen their vision and create more opportunities or initiatives to take on our advocacies. And last is for the mentorship opportunities. We need to create more leaders. We need to create more people to come at the front. So we need to teach them on the ways. We need to guide them. And of course, we need to form better leaders for tomorrow. So I think that faith-based organizations should not only be concerned with faith dynamics across cultures and countries, but we should be rooted deep in propagating and instilling our advocacies on our people.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, we can round of applause. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm hearing a lot of sort of putting trust in young people and kind of letting that take organizations and movements kind of where young people want to lead them. And I think that's a really important message, especially in a pavilion like this where we do have so many organizations coming together and thinking about really what that can look like when we empower young people to sort of make decisions and take things forward. And I want to kind of on that note move towards Silvana and Tahir. I would love to hear you talk a bit about the work you do as delegates in the context of negotiations and sort of diplomatic processes. We've heard you speak a bit about your own personal faith motivations, but I would love to hear about kind of what that experience is like in the roles that you hold as youth delegates and kind of the way, as well, the way that you interact with faith-based organizations and government delegations and diplomacy, and kind of how you think that that could be moved forward as well.
And thank you very much for the question. I work with the government of Paraguay in the Department of Adaptation to Climate Change. And we are in charge of developing the national adaptation plans. And for that, we think that it is important to get more involvement of faith-based organizations because they are the first one. Most of the time, they are the first one to respond to natural disasters, and those are getting more intense now with the effects of climate change. So they have like hands-on experience, they have rich knowledge that must be reflected in our policy making in order for us, when we come to this big platform, to reflect the needs of communities. So now we have started working, for example, with the diocese of one community in a region that is called the Chaco Paraguayo, which is one of the areas more prone to drought. And this experience has helped us to collect more precise data that represents the needs of those communities. And it is actually very touching because when we go to the meetings, sometimes they tell us that people, they don't have water to drink. They crawl for the mud to extract like the last drop of water in order to find water. So this is shaping our positions with regard with national adaptation plans to move towards implementation instead of just formulating and elaborating the plans, like to look forward to implement the plans in order to make people in communities have the resources. So in that regard, we are now implementing an ecosystem-based adaptation project that looks to assist people with increasing their access to water and reduce their vulnerability and in regards to drought. So in few words, I will say that faith-based organizations have rich knowledge that should shape policy making, and there should be more actively engage in decision-making processes. Thank you.
Yeah, Tahir, over to you.
Yes, and everyone spoke so eloquently on everything. The reality is that the climate crisis affects us all, affects every sector, every community, every organization. And faith-based organizations similarly are being affected significantly from the climate crisis. So in this regard, the response to the climate crisis has to be a whole of sector approach. It can't just be at the governmental level. I find oftentimes when we speak on climate change or the climate crisis, it's a very high-level political conversation. But the reality is that we have to break it down to each and every organization, each and every sector, each and every person, so that the faith-based organizations, the community groups, the farmers, the health advocates, they all understand what the impact of the climate crisis is. So our role as faith leaders, as young leaders, as elder persons within the crowd and as a whole of society, we have to equip persons with the knowledge that they are able to deal with the climate crisis first and foremost. We cannot leave no person behind. We cannot leave no organization behind. We cannot leave no one behind, because education is extremely critical for persons to understand the impact. Unless persons are educated, they will not know the true impact of anything. So similarly for the climate crisis, we need a whole of sector approach. I don't think many governments focus heavily on the faith-based organizations in a significant manner, but it is an organization and it is a community that must be engaged. Because as my colleague said, faith-based organizations are often the first response when a hurricane hits, when a storm hits, when an earthquake happens. Persons run to those institutions for assistance because that's their faith they're coming out. So it is critical that we are then able to equip them with the knowledge, the skills, and the ability to now deal with it. Because at the end of the day, all of the religious texts has indicated that the climate crisis will happen. True? I want to hear from you guys. Yeah. So we are ahead of the game. So we have to now help other persons along on this journey as well and help them to understand what role they can play. And then also as a faith-based community, not just Muslims, not just Christians, but as a collective, how can we say this is the needs of our community, this is the needs of our institutions, and this is the needs that we need for policy, for development, and for advocacy at the governmental level. Because unless we can come, if we don't come together, it will just be individual institutions all over the place asking for different stuff. In my country, back home in Barbados, the churches are often used as shelters. So when a hurricane is coming in the Caribbean, the churches, schools are used as shelters for persons who are below the poverty line to come. If their house, if they feel like they want to just get away, and they can go to the church and there's someone there. And it's not, in all instances, a person of faith. It's just a person there assisting them. But are the churches equipped? Are the religious institutions equipped with it? With the knowledge and the ability to handle these challenges? And that is our role that we have to play as the faith leaders, of the upcoming leaders. Let's not be dependent on anyone to chart this path for us. But I think we're behind the 8 ball in many instances, because faith and religions, as I said in my opening, have been used in many instances as a trivial political issue to divide people. Now we have to chart that transformation, as Lucy spoke on, that way we can use religions and faith to come together as one to really chart that path and that transformation for development and for the better of the wider society.
Thank you so much, both. And I think it's a great point that there are these resources that already exist within faith communities, and it's not a question of if they will be utilized, but when, because it's already kind of embedded in so many communities to sort of look towards faith communities as a source of support and of help, and it's important to kind of have that awareness and be prepared, because it's inevitable, it's just a question of when. We have a little bit of extra time, so I'm going to add a question that we didn't talk about prior, but I hope it's okay. I'm curious, everyone here is at COP28. We're here because we care about the technical side of this event, and about the negotiations and about the decisions that will come out of this negotiation. And I'm curious, when we're talking about faith as a resource, if any of you have had a type of experience here or in previous sort of fora like COP, where faith has been a resource for you in your work, and if you have examples that you might want to speak to. Do you have one? I caught them off guard, but
I can take it first.
yeah.
I think we have to look at faith as a staple of our life. Faith is something we have to eat every single day. My background is in sports, so sorry about that. But faith is something that we have to have within our psyche, within our mental operation, or within our mental space. Because if we don't have faith, we don't have anything. That's the reality. Faith sometimes may look like going down a dark tunnel. Faith may sometimes making a decision have to go left or to go right. Faith has no limits. So we really have to use faith in every aspect of our life and use the faith in making decisions which are morally and ethically correct based on what is best for other people. People ask me oftentimes, Miriam, what drives me? And I say, I just want to make a positive impact in everybody's life that I interact with. It doesn't matter who. I just want to make a positive impact. And that is my faith there. So if I've impacted you positively, that's it. I'm going to leave it right there. So that is what I get up every morning and say, I want to impact somebody's life positively today. And that, for me, is where faith is.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have a thought? Yeah.
So yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, my faith is kind of really about the faith in the potential of humanity to win over like negativity. And at Bonn, I attended Bonn, SB 58 in Bonn this year, and through Youngo. So I was working with Youngo, and we had a bilateral with Simon Still, and kind of I was really preparing myself to really kind of, believe that I have the potential to like have an impact, that I can really, through opening my own heart, have an impact on someone to open theirs as well. And that's kind of how I was prepping myself to go into this meeting, which was a bit intimidating for me, speaking to like Simon Still. Anyway, we were seated around a table, and I was like almost like this close to him, and I had a question for him that I said, you're surrounded by youth who have a lot of hope, and they're engaging in these processes, working in climate action, but there are millions of young people outside of this space who have completely lost hope, who just don't have any hope in this process, or hope that things will get better. Like, what is your message for them? And he first of all just responded in very political matter, very politician wise. And I was just kind of really I was just sitting next to him, just really in my heart, just please, you have to dig deeper. You have to kind of give us more than that, because it's just we need to have faith in the science and our policies. And I was like, this not enough. And he stopped talking, and I was just still really kind of pleading with him to say more. And then I could see him reflecting, and then after a few moments, he just kind of really went deeply into really sharing from the heart about how, many things that he spoke about, but I could feel that he was not responding from Simon Still, the politician, but as a human being. And that was just a really touching moment for me, because I was really believing in his humanity. And yeah, I felt that it was in some way communicated to him in that way.
That's great, thank you. I think one of my biggest frustrations is when people older say that what gives them hope is the youth, because then what does that leave for young people to be hopeful about? I find it very frustrating. And I think that's kind of, I'm glad that you were able to sort of get past that with him, and I think that's really powerful to kind of force a bit of a deeper answer. Yeah, Precious, did you want to respond?
So I am actually part of the city council in our place. So, but before I partake in the city council, especially on the ordinance and the resolutions there, I actually thought if it should be the right path for me to partake in the politics, because as widely known, the political culture in the Philippines is very difficult, and it is really a challenge for me as a youth leader in the church. So I had to discern and I had to think about it. And of course, as a faith leader, I wanted to make a positive impact in the community, because faith for me is our moral compass. So it gives me strength, and it gives me a heart for service, especially in the public service where the resources are very abundant and where the platform is much larger than what is given to me as a church leader. So I think that faith is my guide in everything that I do and in the everyday life that I ought to live until that I may be able to make a positive impact to every children and youth in our place. So that's it.
Well, in my case, I will say that I come to COP as part of one group that is called the Climate Youth Negotiators Program. And within this program, we have a network of young negotiators from all over the world, from around 50 countries, and they come from all different backgrounds and religions and beliefs. And just last night, we were like all talking together, and we were saying that sometimes in our lives, like our faith has cost us maybe friendships or jobs, but in this space that we created, we had like a family, a space when we could like exchange different views and fight together for the common good and for what we want in our beliefs. If they may be different, but we want to love our brothers and sisters, and we want to take care of our common house, of our world. And also this mindset, it helps us when we go to the negotiation rooms, because we are able to look more beyond national positions or red lines. We are inspired to look forward, creating a more sustainable future, to take better care of our house, of God's creation, and just to love each other like we are all sisters, we are all sons and daughters of God. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah. That was really beautiful. I think that's a good transition as well to our final question, which is, I think, given sort of what we've talked about today, and that there are all these resources existing within faith communities, within young people, and within faith-based organizations that we've seen, like in your answers, we've seen kind of the ways that is already playing out, and it is really valuable, as you just said. And so I would love to ask you all, just kind of in closing, and given this platform that we have, how you think that faith-based organizations or other sort of institutions that you work with can play a bigger role in advocacy for climate action, thinking about climate justice and thinking about integrating the perspectives of young people, not just as like a side issue, but really kind of taking that to the center of what they do, and what maybe suggestions or recommendations you would have. And maybe we can start at the end with Tahir this time.
I think as young people, we can't wait anymore. We really can't wait. They often say the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, but we can't wait. We have to take charge and take the responsibility of how we chart our future, how we chart the future of the world that we live in, no matter what space we are in. So, with that being said, we have to now sit and really analyze and see where we're at and where we can carry forward our work. I think we often play a waiting game, sitting back and saying, okay, I'm not of that age as yet. I'm not there as yet. And oftentimes the elders say, you're too young, sit down. Or you don't get the opportunity because you're not that experienced. Or maybe you would have made a mistake and they're holding that mistake over you. but mistakes are part of it. And mistakes are the reason we have faith. Because as I said in my opening as well, faith is the reason that we get up every morning. When the rain falls, we know that the sun will shine tomorrow. So that's what we have to do. Just take charge and take responsibility. Take responsibility of the transformation of ourselves first and foremost, transformation of the persons around us, and then the transformation of the communities that we operate in. And if we have this transformational mindset, that we can be the change and operate in a space that we really want to see. Be that change, because oftentimes, as I said, we play that waiting game, and it's like, okay, should I do it or should I not? But just take that step. Take that step and operate and make that change that you would want to see. We may not have the resources now. We may not have the support now. But trust me, it will come. That's where faith comes in again. But we have to take this step. If we don't take that step towards transformation, we will never get to that space where we want to be. And transformation never ends. I think a challenge that younger people face, I'm not sure if you face it in your places, but in your countries, but a lot of young people feel that they made it when they get to a certain space. No, there's always a next step. There's always better. There's always more people you can have an impact on. And that is the importance of, I think, where we need to go. It starts from within, and if we can transform ourselves first for becoming better for the wider world, trust me, we can definitely make an impact in every possible way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Precious, go ahead.
So faith-based organizations are regarded as of moral authority. So I think that faith-based organizations should really walk what they talk. So instead of just teaching people what to do, and instead of just telling people that we should do this and do that for climate justice, I think that faith-based organizations should start and take the initiative to create more opportunities for climate actions, and especially to influence their people to take on the responsibility of caring and protecting the environment. So we all know that the faith-based organization has a wide reach of people. They are highly populated, so it would be better, and I think that it is only possible that they will be able to influence each and every people to take on climate justice.
I would like to start by asking, like, the audience, if have you ever heard or have you ever been part of the construction of a national adaptation plan or a local adaptation plan? So I see one, I see two, three, so we are increasing. So that's good, but that reflects as well how we need, like, to get faith-based organizations more involved, like actively involved in the development of this powerful policy instrument, because they shape the negotiations here. So, and faith-based organizations, they have, like, the knowledge from the core of communities. They have the knowledge of the stakeholders that are within communities. So this will help to have a better identification of the needs and ways to act together and to move climate action forward. So I believe that this lack of involvement of faith-based organizations is not because they don't want or they don't know. It's because we need to do more sensitization, and from the governments, from the multilateral organizations. So I believe there is work to be done in terms of capacity building, knowledge transfer, and to try to push forward more in participation of faith-based organizations within these very important processes. So that's my belief and that's my experience, and I believe that my country has improved too much its policy making process in adaptation since we have involved in faith-based organizations. So I will encourage this practice, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a good reminder that we should all go learn more about our country's national adaptation plan. So once you leave here, everyone can do that.
Yeah, similarly to what you said, Tahir, for me, I think it's really about an intergenerational collaboration. And I think within a lot of faith communities, that intergenerational dialogue is just not happening. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, let's get together and work, but actually fostering friendships through dialogue between generations is really important. So I would say definitely that. Practically, faith-based organizations can include young people in their delegations, support them to participate through funding, training, but also give them opportunities to really lead and trust them. And through that kind of friendship and dialogue that will have been established, hopefully that will pave the way for greater trust between generations. And lastly, just kind of internally in faith-based organizations, young people don't always have the confidence to, share their ideas. So I think there is a responsibility for older generations to seek out the inputs from youth and not always wait for young people to come and share. Like, a lot of the young people that I meet here are just so tired. They're just burnt out, trying to just knock on doors that always seem to be closed. So faith leaders can reach out to their youth, hold dialogues, just give them space to share. And through that really kind of foster these friendships, I would say, to begin with.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that's a great note to conclude our discussion on. Let's have a big round of applause for everyone. Thank you all so much. And I think on that note of thinking about kind of the internal dynamics maybe and the opportunities for young people, we want to have a workshop sort of style discussion. And so I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Roman, who is, come on up, who is the head of the COP28 delegation for FIMCAP, which is a network of Catholic community-based youth organizations. And he's going to explain a little bit more about how we can right now have a discussion and kind of get some of the ideas from us and from the crowd about how to move faith forward. Sorry? We're gonna move into the discussion, but we can do some Q&A maybe or like sort of interactive questions as part of that. Yeah. You wanna take a question?
Yeah, I was having a good question.
Okay. Do one quick question.
I think we can take a question.
All right, we'll take, okay, fine. If it sounds like it's a good one. Oh. Yeah.
It's fine. I have a good place. So, first of all, I would like to appreciate it's really constructive and insightful discussion and a really important topic because, yeah. So, I would like to add on with the Mr. Tahir's statement. I really like that as faith and religion is something which is uniting people. But unfortunately, nowadays, religion is being used as a political weapon, which is a source of a divide. So my question is that, do you think that religion and faith could become or come as a hurdle of spreading the reach or spreading awareness in a climate advocacy or spreading your vision or spreading your voice among the community and grassroots level? Because every society or every community have their own cultural and religious barrier as well. So if you're not onboarding this religious stakeholders, so it could be as a source of hurdle or source of resistance as well. I'll give a living example of, I'm hailing from Pakistan. So when we were having an advocacy for the polio campaign, polio vaccination campaign, so there were some religious stakeholders who were spreading a negative propaganda against the polio vaccine and something like that. So which was having a resistance and a negative propaganda, negative false perception was being created among the polio vaccination campaign where there was nothing among that, which was helpful and beneficial for the people of community. So my question is, if there are different cultural and societal barriers, so how you would be tackling while advocating and spreading the climate advocacy? As I myself, a climate and a policy advocate, I used to spread advocacy, and we used to face a lot of problem while persuading people in different areas and different regions.
Yeah, great question. Does anyone want to take that?
Yeah, since I made a point, I'll answer the question. And thank you for the point and the example as well. The reality is that they have used it as a dividing weapon. And additionally, within the religious institutions, there has been also division. While our role is to work together. I live in a small country. And there's so many churches. There's so many mosques. It's mind-boggling as a young person. And quite frankly, I'm going to speak real, I'm going to speak honest. A lot of young people are going away from faith because of this politics that are involved within the religious institutions. And it's a very, very sad state to be in. So within that division, there's been a subdivision and then a further subdivision. So in my mind, I'm remembering math in school. Remember you had these little circles and you have the division of the circles, you know? I can't remember what it's called. It was not good in math. But the reality is that religious institutions have to understand their role. They have to play in the society today. Religious institutions have to be at the forefront of a lot of the things, a lot of the policies, a lot of the development that takes place. If we go away from faith, it will not be good. Faith has to be the foundation. Religion, moral good has to be the foundation. And you see the countries and the projects and the development frameworks that have gone away from moral good as the foundation, and what has happened to them. So if you do not start on a moral good for everyone, what's going to happen thereafter? But to answer your question directly, religious institutions, no matter what faith you're from, what religion you're from, you have to understand the role you have to play in developing and being a part of the whole picture. As we said, the climate crisis is a whole of sector impact. So it has to be a whole of sector approach. Every sector, it leaves no one behind. So we have to understand the role we have to play. And I think, if possible, coming out of this, one of the suggestions we can have, because I was not familiar with the Faith Pavilion before, but perhaps we can have a youth faith working group that really puts forward policies, just like they have Youngo and they have different advocacy. But I'm not familiar with a faith-based working organization. But perhaps, and not just on the climate crisis, but on other issues as well. And I can see that being an active working group, which can be a change moving forward. But if we are dependent on the religious institutions to come together, as my Christians would say, we'll wait till the kingdom come for that. So we can't wait, as I said. We have to be that change, and we have to be that generation. As I told Lucy earlier, we have to be that generation where we break those things that have been passed down to us, which are not good. So we have to really break it within and work together. Just quite frankly, work together. If we're going to wait on the religious institutions, I don't think they're ever going to come together at this stage. Unfortunately, it's quite bleak, but... It's true. But as you said, within the cultures, we have to understand that culture will always be there. But we have to find a way to work with different people. In my country, back in Barbados, mental health is a serious challenge. Suicide among young people is a serious challenge. And why do you commit suicide? Because you've lost hope. When you have, and for me, it's not when you lose hope, it's when you lose faith. When you lose faith, you have no hope. So you have to encourage faith. And I'm saying now, faith now. So we have to have that as our slogan, faith now. I'm seeing it on the wall there.
Yeah, on the pillar.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we really, I'm not sure what's on the other side. But that, I think we have to really understand that more brings us together than divides us. That's the reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I think that's an even maybe better transition into a discussion we want to talk about some concrete ways that we can maybe move this into a more productive sort of space. So I'm going to hand it over to Roman now. And yeah, you're too tall for the wired mic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you should be able to hear me now. Okay, so now we're moving to the little bit more dynamic, workshop-based part of this session. I first of all want to thank all of the speakers. I think we had a very interesting discussion. A little round of applause. Thank you very much. I think it was interesting. I think it's interesting to see how young people are thinking forward, have new ideas. Think differently maybe about how things can be done. Think differently how we can come together, which maybe is a challenge for other people. But I think this is the hope and the chance and opportunity that lies within this young generation. Because yes, we might be desperate at times, but I think we also have a lot of energy to move forward, to create something new, to create something better, and to really strive for change in this world. Now we want to think a little bit about how we can actually do this. We want to discuss a little bit, think a little bit, especially about faith-based climate advocacy. How can we improve that? How can we move forward and make sure that we can, based on the moral and value-based approaches that we have across all religions, move forward and create meaningful change for the better. And I think there's no better way to do this than to have an open discussion in this faith pavilion with people from different faiths, different backgrounds, different countries, to really just, you know, think together, work together, and maybe cross some of the divides that might appear in society at some times. I now have to actually, there was a clicker. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I want to just give a little bit of an introduction. That might not be relevant because I know that all of you are experienced advocacy people. You have been in these spaces for a long time, but maybe just as a little bit of a background. Because I think that faith-based advocacy has strengths that we can use. We have distinct advantages that also maybe separate us from other actors, from other NGOs, from other players in the space, and we can use and have to use these advantages to drive the global discussion forward. I think the first of these advantages is that maybe we have better access to policymakers because of our value background. This means we come from another angle. We see problems with a different lens and coming from a different corner, which I think can open new perspectives, both in advocacy as well as in policymaking. It can open new ideas, new avenues to really help us achieve change. The second point kind of goes into the same direction. We can better appeal with moral arguments. We can say this is not about hard facts. It's not about technical details of policy. It might be at the end of the day, but it's driven by our moral reasoning. It is driven by our moral obligation to leave a better world to our children, to future generations, and to preserve the planet that we have been given as a gift. And I think the third point is also the way we engage in public spaces, in protests and actions, can be very different. We've all seen protests with like posters and banners before, but I've heard people say loads of times in this context, oh, there was a joint prayer, there was something very unique, very special, that moved people because of this moral background, because of this value-based background, that they were like, okay, this point, or this action, or this advocacy that people took really moved me in a way nothing else has. And I think this is a distinct advantage that we have as faith communities. And the last one is, well, as it has been said several times, faith leaders have influence because of who they are and who they represent in their communities. And I think this is maybe something that we as young people have to take up. And we have to talk to the elders, to the faith leaders, and be like, we expect you to speak up. We expect you to act. We expect you to not only preach, but to act on what you're preaching and really move this discussion forward, because you do have an influence. You have a chance to change the rules of the game. You have the chance to change how we discuss this and how we act on it. And I think this is an advantage that we should use. Okay, I would skip the next part, which is basically just some practical recommendations, but I'm sure you all know them, and move right to our workshop session. I would like you to maybe form, I would say 3 groups based on how many people we are. Maybe just huddle together, make a little bit of a circle so that we can have a conversation. Just turn around, turn to the people behind you, in front of you, and try to get into a setting where you can have a little bit of a conversation. I'll give you 2 minutes maybe to do that, but I would also start with saying, well, what's the idea behind this? I think the first point would be introduce yourselves, introduce your background, where you're coming from, and then maybe share a little bit of a story, similar to what our speakers have shared, about how you have had success with advocacy and how faith plays a role in the work you're doing, how faith plays a role in why you are here today, and why you maybe still have hope that we might, in the end, save this world from climate catastrophe. So I would just give you maybe 5 minutes to do this. We have our speakers leading the sessions, coordinating the sessions. So maybe just turn around to your neighbors, to the people sitting behind in front of you, and I would maybe ask 3 of you, or maybe all of you, to just join the circles and facilitate a little bit. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this is a very good start. We start with a small circle, and then we can have a very nice discussion. Maybe several ones, but it seems like there's one, here's one. You can also have just, and here's the third one. Perfect.